I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. The crystal champagne flute shattered against my daughter's wedding cake before I even realized I'd knocked it over. Not because I was clumsy, but because my hands had gone numb the moment I saw what Victoria Ashford was holding. It wasn't the wedding gift I'd expected. It wasn't jewelry or china or one of those crystal vases that rich people give to look generous. It was a maid's uniform. Gray polyester, the kind worn by the invisible women who scrub toilets in buildings like the Plaza Hotel where we were standing. And next to it a toilet brush with stiff bristles that looked like they'd never been used. "For my new daughter-in-law," Victoria announced, her voice carrying across the ballroom like she was accepting an award. 300 guests went silent. "Since you come from such humble beginnings, Mia, I thought it essential you understand your primary role in this family. Service. A wife serves her husband. We wouldn't want you confused about your station just because you're wearing Vera Wang today." The laughter started in scattered pockets. Victoria's friends' women in jewels that cost more than my yearly salary as a paralegal tittered behind their champagne glasses. Then the laughter spread dutiful and ugly to the people who were too afraid to offend an Ashford. I watched my daughter's face crumble. Mia stood there in her beautiful gown, the one we'd found on sale at Kleinfeld's after visiting 7 times, and she looked exactly like she had at 8 years old when the popular girls told her she couldn't sit at their lunch table. Small, invisible, ashamed. Her new husband Dominic laughed too, a short bark of amusement that cut through my chest like a blade. "Perfect mother," he said, squeezing Mia's shoulder like she was a dog who'd performed a trick. "Very practical. She'll put it to good use." That's when something inside me shifted. Not rage. I'd learned to control rage 15 years ago when my husband died and left me alone to raise Mia on a paralegal's salary. This was colder, sharper. This was the thing that had kept me working 3 jobs to send my daughter to college. The thing that had made me study legal documents late into the night until I understood them better than some lawyers. This was a mother recognizing a predator circling her child. I stood up. The scrape of my chair against the parquet floor echoed in the silence. I was 58 years old, wearing a dress I'd bought at Macy's with a coupon, and I probably looked exactly like what Victoria thought I was, a working-class woman from Queens who didn't belong in the Plaza Hotel. But invisibility has its advantages. It gives you time to prepare while everyone else underestimates you. I walked toward the head table. My small, beaded clutch felt heavy in my hand, weighted down by the envelope inside. The envelope I'd been carrying for 6 months, waiting for the right moment. Or maybe waiting for the wrong moment. For proof that my instincts about Dominic Ashford were correct. "What an interesting gift, Victoria," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "It certainly speaks volumes about your values." Victoria looked at me with the kind of amused contempt you'd show a fly that had landed too close to your wine glass. "Charlotte, isn't it? We haven't had much chance to chat. You understand planning a wedding of this caliber is quite demanding." "I'm sure," I said. I stopped in front of Mia, who was clutching that gray uniform like it was contaminating her wedding dress. Her eyes found mine, desperate and drowning. "Since we're exchanging practical gifts today, I have something for you too, sweetheart." I opened my clutch and pulled out the envelope. Thick cream-colored paper. Legal weight. The kind that means business. Mia's hands shook as she took it. "Mom, what? Open it, honey." The ballroom had gone so quiet I could hear the rustle of paper as Mia unfolded the documents. I watched her eyes scan the first page, saw the exact moment she understood what she was holding. Her breath hitched. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Read it out loud, Mia," I said gently, "so everyone can hear." Mia's voice came out as a whisper at first, then gained strength. "Deed of trust. Property located at 42 Willow Creek Lane, Hudson Valley, New York." She looked up at me, tears trembling on her lashes. "Owner Mia Elizabeth Hayes. Sole beneficiary." The silence that followed was different. Electric. Shocked. I didn't look at Victoria or Dominic. I kept my eyes on my daughter. "Keep reading, baby. The important part." Mia's voice steadied. "The property is held in an irrevocable spendthrift trust. It belongs to Mia Hayes alone and cannot be sold, mortgaged, or transferred without her explicit written consent. In the event of divorce, the property is excluded from marital assets and remains the sole property of the beneficiary." Now I looked at Dominic. His face had gone white, then red. He snatched the papers from Mia's hands. "A house you bought her, a house, He turned to me and I saw something flicker in his eyes that confirmed every suspicion I'd had since the day Mia introduced us. With what money? And why wasn't I consulted? It's a farmhouse, I said calmly. Victorian era needs some work, but the structure is sound. 3 bedrooms, 2 acres, completely paid off. I've been restoring it on weekends for the past 5 years. I pulled out a small brass key and pressed it into Mia's palm. And I didn't consult you, Dominic, because it's not your house. It's Mia's. Only Mia's. Victoria had found her voice. Her face was mottled red, her careful society mask cracking. This is an outrageous insult. You're implying my son can't provide for his wife. You're preparing for divorce before the marriage even begins. I'm ensuring my daughter has a roof over her head that no one can take away from her, I replied. The ballroom was absolutely silent now, 300 people holding their breath. I'm ensuring that if she's ever made to feel like a servant in her own marriage, I picked up the gray uniform and held it up. She has a place where she's the mistress, not the maid. I turned to Mia, whose tears were flowing freely now. I took her face in my hands the way I had when she was little and scraped her knee. Marriage should be a partnership, sweetheart, not a prison. You wear that dress because you're a bride, not hired help. And you own that house, so you're never ever trapped. I kissed her forehead. Then I picked up my clutch, turned, and walked back to my table. Behind me, the whispers erupted like a dam breaking. I didn't look back. I sat down next to my brother Owen, who squeezed my hand so hard I felt my bones shift. That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing you've ever done, Charlie, he muttered. Maybe both, I whispered back. But I had seen something that made every penny of my savings worth it. I had seen Mia's shoulders straighten. I had seen her fold those documents carefully and tuck them into the bodice of her dress right against her heart. I had seen her hand that ugly gray uniform to a passing waiter and watch him carry it away like the garbage it was. And I had seen the look on Dominic Ashford's face, the look of a man who just realized his prey had teeth. The reception limped along after that. The band played, people danced, but there was a tension in the air like everyone was waiting for an explosion. Victoria sat at the head table, her mouth a thin line of fury. Dominic kept pulling Mia aside for whispered conversations that made her face go pale. I kept my distance. I had made my move. Now I had to trust that the seed I'd planted would grow. Around 10 o'clock, Mia found me near the coat check. She'd been crying, her makeup was smudged, and her eyes were red-rimmed. But there was something else in her expression, too. Something that looked almost like hope. Mom. She wrapped her arms around me and buried her face in my shoulder like she was 12 again. I can't believe you did that. I should have done it sooner, I said, stroking her hair. The moment I met him and saw how he looked at you. She pulled back. What do you mean? Like you were something he owned. Something he was going to shape and control until you fit his idea of perfect. I cupped her cheek. You're already perfect, Mia. You always have been. He's so angry, she whispered. He says you're trying to poison our marriage before it even starts, that you don't trust him. I don't, I said bluntly. And sweetheart, I need you to hear this. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Dominic loves you the way you deserve to be loved. I hope you have 50 happy years together and never need that house for anything except weekend getaways. I took both her hands. But if I'm right, if there ever comes a day when you need somewhere to go, you have somewhere. That's all. It's insurance. It's a safety net. It's not an insult to your marriage. It's a promise from your mother that you'll never be trapped. Mia's lip trembled. Dominic says if I really loved him, I'd break the trust and sell the house. Put the money in our joint account as a show of faith. My blood went cold. We hadn't even made it past the wedding reception, and he was already trying to take it away from her. The trust can't be broken, Mia. That's the point. It's ironclad. Marcus Henderson, my boss at the firm, he drafted it himself. It would take 2 years and a court order, and even then the court would need proof that keeping the trust is harmful to you. I held her gaze. Don't let Dominic convince you otherwise. That house is yours. Your name. Your key. Your choice. Always. She nodded slowly, but I could see the doubt creeping in. The newlywed desire to prove her loyalty to make her husband happy to start their life on the right foot. Just promise me something, I said. Promise me you'll visit the house. Soon. Before you decide anything. Just you. No one else. Go there and sit on the porch and feel what it's like to be in a place that's completely, utterly yours. I promise, Mia said. But 3 weeks later, when she and Dominic returned from their Maldives honeymoon, that promise started to feel very far away. The postcards Mia sent from their honeymoon should have reassured me. They didn't. The first one arrived 5 days after the wedding. A picture of turquoise water and white sand. On the back, in Mia's familiar looping handwriting, "Mom, it's paradise here. Dominic is being so sweet." I think maybe we all overreacted at the wedding. The house thing scared him, that's all. We're going to be fine. Love you so much. The second postcard came a week later. Another beach scene. The message shorter: weather is perfect. Dominic keeps joking about our little house project. Says we should renovate it together. Make it ours. Isn't that sweet? The third postcard arrived the day before they were due home. A sunset over the ocean. Just one line. See you soon. Miss you. I pinned all 3 postcards to my refrigerator and stared at them while my coffee went cold. Something was wrong. I could feel it the way I'd felt it when Mia was 5 and came home from school too quiet, too controlled. And I'd later discovered she'd been bullied by an older girl on the bus. The progression of those messages told a story. Enthusiasm fading to dutiful pleasantness to near silence, like watching someone disappear. Owen came over that evening with Chinese takeout. He took one look at my face and said, "You're spiraling." "I'm analyzing." "Same thing." He unpacked the container's lo mein dumplings sesame chicken, comfort food from our childhood in Queens. "Charlie, you did what you could. You gave her the house. Now you have to let her live her life." What if it's not enough? I pushed the food around my plate. What if I'm watching my daughter make the biggest mistake of her life and I can't stop it? Then she'll make it and learn from it, like we all do. Owen had been through his own bad marriage 20 years ago. He understood the helpless feeling of watching someone you love choose wrong. But you can't control this, sis. You can only be there when she needs you. The problem was I wasn't sure Mia would be able to reach me when she needed me. And I was right. When Mia and Dominic returned to New York, they moved into his penthouse on the Upper East Side. A sleek, modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. The first time Mia invited me over, I felt like I'd stepped into a different world. Everything was white. White walls, white marble, white leather furniture. The only color came from black and white photographs in expensive frames, all of them pictures of the Ashford family. Dominic's deceased father at his Wall Street desk. Victoria at various charity galas. Dominic himself smiling and confident in a dozen different poses. There wasn't a single photograph of Mia. Not one. "It's beautiful," I lied, standing in the cavernous living room. "Very modern." Dominic had it redecorated before we moved in, Mia said. She was wearing clothes I'd never seen before, an expensive-looking cashmere sweater and tailored pants. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. She looked polished and uncomfortable. "He said my old furniture was too collegiate." "Where did it go?" "Donated." She said it too quickly. Dominic thought we should start fresh. I wanted to ask where her grandmother's rocking chair had gone. The bookshelf she'd painted herself in college. The vintage typewriter she'd found at a flea market and restored. All the things that made a space feel like Mia's. But I didn't. Because just then Dominic emerged from what I assumed was his home office. "Charlotte." He crossed the room with his hand extended all charm and white teeth. "So good to see you. I hope Mia's given you the tour." "Just started," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was too firm, too long. A dominance display. "Well, let me show you the master suite. We just had it completely redone." He put his arm around Mia's waist, and I saw her stiffen slightly before forcing a smile. "Had to make sure my beautiful wife has everything she needs." The master bedroom was as sterile as the rest of the apartment. More white, more marble, a bed so large it looked like you could lose someone in it. The closet was the size of my entire bedroom in Queens, and it was divided precisely down the middle. Dominic's side was full of expensive suits and Italian shoes. Mia's side had clothing I knew she'd never chosen, all neutral colors, all conservative cuts, all completely unlike her. "Where are your pearl earrings?" I asked. The vintage ones I'd given her for her 21st birthday weren't on the jewelry stand. Mia touched her ear where she was wearing simple diamond studs. Cold. Impersonal. "Oh, I'm keeping those somewhere safe. They're too precious to wear every day." "But you used to wear them all the time." "Things change, Mom." Her voice had an edge. "I'm a married woman now. I need to dress appropriately." Appropriately, the word hung in the air like spoiled milk. We had lunch in their gleaming white kitchen salads that Dominic had ordered from some expensive delivery service. The conversation was stilted, full of careful pauses and loaded silences. Dominic dominated the discussion, talking about his new venture capital fund, his plans for their future, his vision for the kind of life they'd build together. Mia barely spoke. When she did, Dominic had a habit of talking over her or correcting small details of her stories. Actually, honey, it was Thursday, not Wednesday. No, we went to the blue restaurant, not the red one. You're forgetting the best part of that story, let me tell it. Each correction was small, insignificant on its own, but together they created a pattern, a message. I know better than you. I remember better than you. My version matters more than yours. Around 2 o'clock, Dominic's phone rang. Excuse me, ladies. Conference call with London. Take your time finishing lunch. He kissed the top of Mia's head like she was a child and disappeared into his office. The moment the door closed, Mia's shoulders sagged. She looked exhausted. Sweetheart, I said carefully, are you happy? Of course I'm happy. Why wouldn't I be happy? But she couldn't meet my eyes. You seem different. I'm adjusting. It's a big change moving in with someone. She pushed her salad around her plate. Dominic has certain expectations. His mother was very particular about how a household should run. He grew up with that structure. Structure is one thing. This feels like what, Mom? Now she did look at me and there was defensiveness in her eyes. Like what, say it? Like you're trying to fit into a box that's too small for you. Mia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. I love him. He loves me. We're just finding our rhythm. Every couple goes through this. Does every couple's husband call them during lunch to check on them? Because that's what had happened. Twice during lunch, Dominic's name had flashed on Mia's phone. Both times she'd answered immediately, her voice going high and cheerful. Yes, honey, just finishing up. Of course. No, we're not going anywhere. Just here. Okay, love you too. She'd hung up and continued eating like it was perfectly normal for your husband to call you from one room away to make sure you were still in the apartment. He worries about me, Mia said. I'm still getting used to the city. He doesn't want me getting lost or overwhelmed. Mia, you've lived in New York for 6 years. You know this city better than I do. That was before, when I was single. Now I'm his wife. He's responsible for me. Responsible. Not protective. Not concerned. Responsible. Like she was a liability instead of a partner. I left the penthouse an hour later with a sick feeling in my stomach. I'd seen enough in my 15 years at the law firm to recognize the early stages of a controlling relationship. But I also knew that pushing too hard too fast would only drive Mia away. Dominic would frame me as the jealous mother who couldn't let go, who was trying to poison his marriage, who didn't want Mia to be happy. So I did the only thing I could do. I called Marcus Henderson on Monday morning and asked him to meet me before work. We sat in a diner near the office and I told him everything. The wedding gift, the postcards, the sterile apartment with no trace of Mia's personality, the phone calls, the corrections. Marcus stirred his coffee slowly, his face grave. He was 55, a brilliant attorney who'd fought his way up from a childhood in the Bronx. He'd seen every kind of family law case imaginable. Charlotte, he said finally, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to want to hear. Tell me anyway. You can't save her from this, not yet. She has to see it herself. But nothing. She's an adult. She's legally married. Unless you have proof of physical abuse and he's controlling isn't enough for the courts, there's nothing you can legally do. He held up a hand before I could interrupt. What you can do is make sure every protection is in place for when she's ready to leave. Because trust me, Charlotte, if this guy is what you think he is, she'll need those protections. The trust is solid, right? He can't touch it. The trust is Fort Knox. I made sure of that. But we should add additional protections. Marcus pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. I'm going to draft an amendment that requires a waiting period of 18 months before any modification can be requested, and it'll require 3 independent legal opinions confirming the modification is in Mia's best interest. That'll buy time if he pressures her to break it. What else? Encourage her to keep her job. Her own income, her own professional identity, those are critical. If she becomes financially dependent on him, leaving becomes exponentially harder. What if he makes her quit? Marcus's face darkened. Then we'll know we're dealing with the scenario we fear. And Charlotte, start documenting everything. Dates, times, conversations, anything that concerns you. If this goes to court, eventually you'll need a record. I started keeping a journal that day. Small, leather-bound, hidden in my desk drawer at home. Every interaction with Mia. Every canceled plan. Every concerning detail. I felt like a spy in my own daughter's life, but Marcus was right. If the worst happened, we'd need evidence. For 6 weeks after they returned from the honeymoon, Mia kept her promise. We met for coffee every Thursday afternoon, halfway between her office in Midtown and my office in the financial district. Those weekly coffees were my lifeline, the only window I had into her life. But I watched that window close week by week. Week 1, Mia seemed herself. Tired, stressed about a big manuscript deadline at Riverstone Publishing, but present. She laughed at my stories about difficult attorneys at the firm. We talked about her work, her colleagues, her latest editing project, a memoir about women's suffrage that she was passionate about. Week 2, Mia was distracted. She checked her phone constantly, cut our coffee short because Dominic had surprised her with last-minute reservations at some exclusive restaurant, and she needed to go home and change. Week 3, Mia arrived 15 minutes late, apologizing profusely. Dominic had called right as she was leaving work with an emergency he needed her to pick up his dry cleaning before the place closed. She'd had to rush across town, then fight her way back through rush hour traffic. She looked frazzled and defeated. Week 4, Mia canceled an hour before we were supposed to meet. Text message. So sorry, Mom. Dominic's mother coming to dinner unexpectedly. Need to prep the apartment. Rain check week 5. We met, but something was wrong. Mia was quieter than usual. She'd lost weight. Her cheekbones were too sharp, her sweater hanging loose on her frame. When I asked about work, she changed the subject. When I asked about Dominic, she gave vague, positive answers that felt rehearsed. How's that women's suffrage memoir coming along? I asked. Oh, I'm not working on that anymore. They gave it to someone else. Why you were so excited about it? My boss thought, he said maybe I had too much on my plate, with being a newlywed and everything. She stirred her latte mechanically. He's right. It was a lot of late nights. Dominic didn't like me working so much. Dominic told your boss to reassign your project. No, nothing like that. But her voice pitched up slightly, defensive. I told my boss I needed to prioritize my marriage. That's normal, right? Newlyweds need time to adjust. Week 6, Mia canceled again. This time, no explanation. Just can't make it. Talk soon. I called her that night. It rang 4 times before she answered, and when she did, her voice was hushed. Mom, is everything okay? I was going to ask you the same thing. You canceled our coffee and didn't say why. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to call. Dominic surprised me with a spa weekend in Connecticut. We're leaving Friday right after work, so I'm trying to wrap things up early. In the background, I heard a male voice. Dominic. Who is that, honey? Just my mom. It's 11 o'clock. Tell her you'll call tomorrow. You need your sleep. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering. It was 8:47 p.m., not 11, and Mia had ended the call immediately when Dominic spoke. I called back. Voicemail. I texted, we got disconnected. Call me when you can. No response. That night I lay awake until 3 a.m. staring at my ceiling and trying to convince myself I was overreacting. That Mia was fine. That her phone had died. That Dominic had been joking about the time because he has a quirky sense of humor. But I knew better. The next morning I called Riverstone Publishing and asked for Rachel Kim, Mia's best friend from work. We'd met a few times at Mia's birthday dinners and work events. Charlotte, is everything okay? Rachel sounded surprised but warm. I hope so. I wanted to ask you about Mia. How is she at work? There was a long pause. Can I call you back in 5 minutes? From my cell? She called from outside the building. I could hear traffic in the background. Charlotte, I'm glad you called. Rachel said, her voice low and urgent. I've been worried about Mia. She's different. She used to stay late, passionate about her manuscripts, always first to volunteer for new projects. Now she bolts at 5 p.m. on the dot. Says Dominic doesn't like her working late. What about that suffrage memoir she said she was taken off it? That's not exactly true. Rachel hesitated. She was taken off it, but not because she asked. Dominic came to the office 3 times in 1 week. Brought her flowers, took her to lunch, showed up just to check on his beautiful wife. Our boss started to think the visits were disruptive. When Dominic mentioned in front of our boss that Mia was stressed and the late nights were affecting her health, our boss reassigned the project to protect her. Dominic spoke to her boss. Dominic spoke to everyone. Charming as hell, but afterward our boss treated Mia like she was made of glass. Started giving her lighter assignments, shorter deadlines. Last week he asked her if she was planning to go on leave soon, like he was expecting her to quit. My hands clenched around the phone. Has she said anything to you about her marriage? About being unhappy? She won't talk about it. I've tried. Last week I suggested we grab drinks after work like we used to. She said Dominic prefers she comes straight home. When I pushed, she got defensive. Said I didn't understand marriage, that I was being a bad friend by judging her choices. Rachel's voice cracked. Charlotte, I think she's isolating herself. Or he's isolating her. I don't know anymore. After I hung up, I sat in my cubicle and tried to think strategically. Dominic was systematically cutting Mia off from her support system, her friends, her work, me. He was doing it subtly enough that Mia didn't recognize it as control. She thought she was making choices to prioritize her marriage. Classic pattern. Textbook abuse. But knowing the pattern didn't tell me how to stop it. That Friday afternoon, instead of going home to Queens, I drove to Hudson Valley, to the farmhouse. I needed to see it to remind myself why I'd fought so hard to give it to Mia. The Victorian house sat on 2 acres of rolling land surrounded by apple trees I'd planted 3 years ago. The exterior was painted a soft yellow with white trim. I'd spent 2 summers scraping off old paint and applying new coats, one careful brushstroke at a time. The wraparound porch had a swing I'd installed myself using YouTube videos and sheer determination. Inside the house smelled like lemon oil and old wood. I'd furnished it simply a comfortable couch, a rocking chair that had belonged to my mother, a kitchen table I'd refinished. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms waited. One I'd imagined as Mia's home office. One as a guest room for when I visited. One for the grandchildren I hoped she'd have someday. The master bedroom had a window seat where you could watch the sunset over the apple orchard. I'd sewn the cushions myself a soft blue floral pattern that reminded me of my grandmother's house. This was supposed to be a place of peace, of safety, of second chances, but Mia had never even visited. I sat on that window seat as the sun went down and let myself cry. For my daughter. For the trap she was walking into. For the helplessness of watching someone you love make choices that will hurt them. When I finally left the farmhouse, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I checked the house's security system, a simple setup I'd installed before giving Mia the deed. It tracked when doors were opened, when the alarm was disarmed. The log showed 1 entry since the wedding, 2 weeks after Mia returned from her honeymoon. She'd been there for 47 minutes on a Wednesday afternoon, a weekday when she should have been at work. Why had she been there? Why hadn't she told me I was about to leave when I noticed something else? Someone had changed the locks. Not on the farmhouse, those still worked with Mia's key. But the decorative gate leading to the back garden had a new lock that my key no longer opened. Someone had been here. Recently, I called Mia on my drive back to the city. Voicemail. I tried 3 more times over the weekend. Each time voicemail. I texted Honey just checking in. Haven't heard from you. Call when you can. Monday morning, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m. Mom? Mia's voice was barely a whisper. I sat bolt upright in bed. Mia, what's wrong? Nothing. I'm sorry I didn't call you back. My phone died and I forgot my charger on the spa trip, and we just got back last night and... She was talking too fast, rambling, making excuses that didn't quite make sense. Mia, slow down. Are you okay? I'm fine, just tired. The spa was really intense. Lots of treatments and early morning yoga, and can I see you this week, our regular Thursday coffee? Actually, Mom, I need to take a break from our weekly coffees for a bit, just temporarily. Dominic and I are trying to establish our routines, and Dominic doesn't want you to see me. It's not like that. We just need some space to be a married couple without... She stopped herself. Without what? Silence. Mia, without what? Without outside influences. Her voice was small, defeated. Dominic thinks our relationship with you is unhealthy, that you're too involved, that you use our coffee dates to undermine him. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I have never said a negative word about Dominic to you. I know, I told him that. But he says there are subtle things. The way you look at him, the questions you ask. He says you gave me that house specifically to create a wedge in our marriage. That you don't want me to be happy with him. The house was to make sure you're safe, Mia. That's all. He says if I really trusted him, I'd break the trust, sell the property, and put the money in our joint account. As a show of faith. There it was. The real agenda. Not just isolating Mia from me, taking away the one asset she had that he couldn't control. Mia listened to me carefully. I kept my voice calm, though my hands were shaking. That trust cannot be broken. That's the entire point. It's legally ironclad. It would take 18 months and multiple court orders, and so you made it impossible for me to choose my husband over you. I made it impossible for anyone to take your security away from you. There's a difference. I have to go, Mom. Dominic's calling me for breakfast. Please just... The line went dead. I sat on my bed in my small Queens apartment listening to my own heartbeat and realized with cold certainty what was happening. Dominic Ashford was erasing my daughter, and I had exactly two choices: back off and lose her completely, or fight back and risk driving her further into his arms. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from Mia. I'm sorry, Mom. I love you. But I need to make my marriage work. Please understand. Then seconds later, don't come to the penthouse. Dominic says it's better if we have space. I'll call you when things settle down. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I opened my journal and wrote down every word. Dated it. Timed it. Evidence. Because Marcus was right. We were going to need evidence. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known sitting there in my bedroom with morning light filtering through my cheap curtains, was that things settling down would never happen. In fact, things were about to get much, much worse. 3 weeks passed without a word from Mia. 3 weeks of unanswered calls that went straight to voicemail. 3 weeks of texts that showed as delivered but never read. 3 weeks of me driving past Riverstone Publishing at 5 p.m., watching employees stream out of the building, hoping to catch a glimpse of my daughter. I saw her once. Just once. She walked out at exactly 4:47 p.m. I know because I checked my watch. She was wearing a beige coat I'd never seen before, her hair pulled back so severely it looked painful. She moved quickly, head down, phone pressed to her ear. Even from across the street I could see the tension in her shoulders. A black town car pulled up. She climbed in without looking around. I wanted to run across the street to bang on the window to demand she talk to me. But I didn't, because I knew it would only make things worse. Dominic would frame it as harassment, as proof that I was unstable, as justification for keeping Mia away from me. So I watched the car disappear into Manhattan traffic and went home to my empty apartment. Owen came over that night with pizza and beer. He took one look at my face and said, "Jesus, Charlie, you look like hell." Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. When's the last time you ate? I couldn't remember. He shoved a slice of pizza at me. Eat, then tell me what's going on. I told him everything. The cut-off contact, the controlling behavior, Rachel's concerns at work, the fear that was eating me alive from the inside out. Owen listened quietly, his construction worker hands wrapped around a beer bottle, his face getting darker and darker. "So what are you going to do?" he asked finally. "I don't know. Marcus says I can't do anything legally unless there's proof of abuse. But by the time there's proof, it might be too late." I pushed the pizza away, my stomach churning. "Owen, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm the problem? What if Dominic is right, and I'm just a controlling mother who can't let go?" "Do you really believe that?" "No, but what if Charlie?" Owen set his beer down and looked at me with the same steady certainty he'd had when we were kids, and he'd promised to protect me from neighborhood bullies. "I met that guy once, at the wedding, and I watched him with Mia. You know what I saw?" I saw my ex-wife, the way she looked at me before things got really bad, like I was a problem to be managed, like I was a project she was going to fix until I was exactly what she wanted. He leaned forward. "That guy doesn't love Mia. He loves the idea of Mia, the version he's going to shape and control until she's perfect. And perfect to guys like him means obedient. So what do? You wait. You stay ready. And when she needs you, and she will need you, Charlie, you move fast." But waiting felt like drowning in slow motion. I threw myself into work, took on extra cases, stayed at the office until 9, 10, 11 at night. Marcus noticed. "Charlotte, go home," he said one Thursday evening, finding me still at my desk at 8:30. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." "I can't go home. If I go home, I'll just sit there and stare at my phone and wait for her to call." Marcus pulled up a chair. "Tell me something. If Mia called right now and said she wanted to leave Dominic, what would you do?" "I'd pick her up immediately, bring her to the farmhouse, make sure she was safe." "And then what?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what's your long-term plan? He's not going to just let her go. The Ashfords have money and power and lawyers. If this becomes a custody battle, she's not even pregnant. Yet. But Charlotte, you need to think ahead. If she gets pregnant, if there's a child involved, this becomes exponentially more complicated." He pulled out a legal pad. "We need to prepare for worst-case scenarios, multiple scenarios. We need to have plans A through Z ready to go." We spent the next 2 hours wargaming possibilities. What if Dominic contested the trust? What if he claimed Mia was mentally unstable? What if he filed for separation and demanded alimony? What if there was a child and he sought full custody? For each scenario, Marcus outlined a legal strategy. He was thorough, brilliant, and completely terrifying. "This is going to be expensive," he said finally. "If it goes to trial, we're talking 6 figures easily. The Ashfords will try to bury you in legal fees, force you to settle. I don't care about the money. You should, because if you run out of money, you run out of options." He tapped his pen against the pad. "How much do you have saved?" I did the math in my head. Retirement account savings, the small amount of equity in my Queens apartment. Maybe $200,000 total, if I liquidate everything. That'll cover initial filings and discovery, but a full trial expert witnesses depositions appeals that could run $300,000 or more. The number hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent 5 years saving for Mia's farmhouse. I'd worked 3 jobs, skipped vacations, driven a 15-year-old car, all to give her that one piece of security. And now I might have to spend everything I had left just to save her from her own husband. "Then I'll spend it," I said. "I'll take out loans. I'll sell my apartment. I don't care. She's my daughter." Marcus looked at me with something like admiration. "Okay, then we prepare. And we hope like hell we never have to use any of this." But hope, I was learning, was a luxury I couldn't afford. The call came 5 weeks after Mia had cut off contact. October 15th, a Tuesday, 2:47 in the afternoon. I was in the middle of reviewing a deposition when my personal cell phone rang. Mia's name flashed on the screen. I answered so fast I nearly dropped the phone. "Mia? Mom," her voice was shaking. "Can you meet me? Please, I need to talk to you." "Of course, where are you?" "There's a coffee shop, near my office, the one on 47th with the blue awning. Can you come now?" "I'm leaving right now. 20 minutes. I grabbed my purse and coat and ran. Marcus caught me in the hallway. "Charlotte, where?" "It's Mia. She called. I have to go." "Do you want me to come with you?" I almost said yes, but something in Mia's voice told me she needed her mother, not a lawyer. Not yet. "I'll call you after," I said, and kept running. Traffic was a nightmare. Every red light felt like an eternity. By the time I found parking and ran the 3 blocks to the coffee shop, I was gasping for air, and my heart was hammering against my ribs. Mia was sitting in the back corner, hunched over a cup of tea. She looked terrible. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. She'd lost more weight, her cheekbones were sharp angles, and her sweater hung off her frame like she'd borrowed it from someone much larger. "Sweetheart," I slid into the chair across from her and reached for her hands. They were ice cold and trembling. "What happened?" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between us. I felt a dozen emotions collide. Joy, fear, protectiveness, dread. "Oh, honey." I squeezed her hands. "How far along?" 8 weeks. I found out yesterday." She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "I should be happy, right? This should be good news." "How do you feel about it?" Terrified. The word came out as a sob. "Mom, I can't have a baby with him. Not now. Not like this." Like what Mia talked to me. And finally, the dam broke. "He's controlling everything," she whispered, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "What I eat, what I wear, where I go, who I talk to. He tracks my phone. I found the app 3 days ago. He has access to my email, my bank accounts, everything." Oh, baby. I tried to tell myself it was normal. that he just loves me and wants to take care of me. But Mom, it doesn't feel like love. It feels like, she struggled for the word, like I'm disappearing, like I'm being erased and replaced with whoever he wants me to be. Have you told anyone else, Rachel, a therapist? I can't. He monitors my phone. He knows everyone I call, every text I send. I had to lie and say I was meeting a client for lunch just to come here. I have 45 minutes before he starts calling. She pulled out her phone. The screen showed 3 missed calls from Dominic in the past 20 minutes. See, he's already checking on me. Don't answer. I have to. If I don't, he'll come to the office. He'll make a scene. She was spiraling into panic. Okay, answer it. But Mia, listen to me. This is not normal. This is not healthy. I'm bringing a baby into this situation. I know. God, I know. She answered the phone, her voice instantly brightening into a fake cheerfulness that made my skin crawl. Hi, honey. Yes, I'm still at lunch. The client is running long. I'll be back in the office by 3:30. I promise. Love you too. She hung up and her face crumpled. I hate myself. I hate that I lie to him constantly just to have 5 minutes of freedom. You don't have to live like this. You can leave. And go where he'll find me. She stopped abruptly, her hand flying to her mouth. He'll what, Mia? Silence. Mia, has he hurt you physically? No, not exactly. Sometimes he grabs my arm too hard, or he'll back me into a corner when he's angry. He's never hit me, but... She pushed up her sleeve. Bruises. 4 of them perfectly spaced like fingerprints, dark purple against her pale skin. My vision actually tunneled. For a moment, all I could see was those bruises, evidence of my daughter being hurt, and all I could hear was white noise roaring in my ears. When? I managed to ask. Last week. I came home late from work, just 20 minutes late because the subway was delayed and he was so angry. He grabbed my arm and said I was disrespecting him by not calling to let him know. That I was making him look like a fool who couldn't control his own wife. She pulled her sleeve down quickly. But Mom, he apologized right away. He cried. Said his father used to grab his mother like that when he was angry, and he's terrified of becoming his father. He promised he'd never do it again. Classic cycle. Abuse, then remorse, then promises, then a honeymoon period, then escalation. I'd seen it 100 times in case files. But reading about it in a legal document was nothing like seeing it on your own daughter's arm. Mia, I need you to listen to me very carefully. This will happen again, and it will get worse. Especially now that you're pregnant. What do you mean? Pregnancy often triggers escalation in abusive relationships. He thinks he has you trapped now, that you can't leave because of the baby, so he'll feel more comfortable showing his real self. But he was so happy when I told him about the baby. He opened champagne while he drank it. I couldn't, and he called his mother and... She stopped. Oh God. What his mother, Victoria, she came over last night. And they had this whole conversation about my duties as a mother, how I'd need to quit my job, obviously, how I'd need to dedicate myself full-time to raising an Ashford heir, how my life wasn't mine anymore, it belonged to the family now. And Dominic agreed with this. He wrote it all down, made a list. He wants me to resign by the end of the month. Said there's no point in me working when I'll just have to quit in a few months anyway. She was crying harder now, her hands pressed against her mouth to muffle the sobs. And the house. Mom, he keeps talking about the house. He says now that we're having a baby, we need to liquidate non-essential assets. He says keeping the house proves I don't trust him, that I'm keeping an escape route and it's poisoning our marriage. The trust can't be broken, Mia, I told you. He found a lawyer, someone who says there are ways around it, that if I claim you coerced me or that I was under duress when you created the trust, we can challenge it in court. She looked up at me, her eyes desperate. Mom, I don't know what to do. He's giving me an ultimatum. Either I file to break the trust and put the money in our joint account, or he says it proves I'm not committed to our family, that I'm choosing you over him and the baby. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading. Dominic was forcing Mia to choose between the safety net I'd created and her marriage. And he'd timed it perfectly right when she was most vulnerable, most scared, most desperate to believe that compliance would earn his love. Mia, look at me. I waited until she met my eyes. You cannot give him that house. I don't care what he threatens. I don't care what he promises. That house is the only thing standing between you and complete dependence on him. But if I don't, he says, what? What does he say? She went very still. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. He says if we ever separate, he'll fight for full custody. He says he has the best lawyers in New York. He says he'll prove I'm an unfit mother, mentally unstable, too influenced by my controlling mother, unable to make decisions in the baby's best interest. She looked at me with pure terror in her eyes. Mom, he'll take my baby. He's already planning it. Like he knew I might try to leave someday. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists. He's bluffing. He's trying to scare you into submission. What if he's not? Then we'll fight him, and we'll win. Because Mia, you have something he doesn't. What evidence, documentation, and me? I pulled out my phone. I need to take pictures of those bruises, right now. Mom, no, Mia, please, I'm not asking you to leave him today. I'm not asking you to file for divorce tomorrow. I'm asking you to let me protect you, just in case. Please. She hesitated, then slowly pushed up her sleeve again. I took pictures from multiple angles, making sure the lighting was good, making sure the date and timestamp were visible. My hands were steady, but inside I was screaming. Good. That's good. I put my phone away. Now listen, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go back to work. You're going to act normal. You're going to tell Dominic the client lunch went long, but you closed the deal. Okay? And you're going to lie about the house. Tell him the lawyer you consulted said the trust is unbreakable, that it would take 2 years and multiple court appearances, and by then it wouldn't be worth the legal fees. Tell him anything but buy time. What about my job? What do you want to do about your job? I want to keep it. I love my job. It's the only thing I have that's mine. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. But he's going to make me quit. I know he is. Then tell him you'll quit after the baby is born. Not now. Not when you need the income and the health insurance. Make it seem like a practical decision, not defiance. Can you do that? She nodded slowly. And Mia, I need you to start documenting everything. Every controlling behavior. Every threat. Every bruise. Every time he tracks your phone or monitors your email. Write it down. Dates, times, exact words if possible. Keep it somewhere he can't find it. Where he goes through everything. I thought for a moment. Do you still have that old email account from college, the one you never use? Yeah, my Gmail. I only use my work email now. Send yourself emails. Write what happened and email it to yourself, but don't open it. It'll stay in your inbox with a time and date stamp. It's not perfect, but it's something. And Mia, if things get worse, if you're ever in immediate danger, you call 911 first and me second. Promise me. I promise. But I could see the resignation in her eyes. She didn't believe it would come to that. She still thought she could manage him, control the situation, make the marriage work through sheer force of will and submission. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to drag her out of that coffee shop and drive her straight to the farmhouse and lock the door and never let Dominic Ashford near her again. But I couldn't, because if I pushed too hard, she'd run straight back to him and I'd lose her completely. So instead I hugged her, held her tight and breathed in the scent of her shampoo, and tried to memorize the feeling of my daughter in my arms, safe for just this moment. I love you, Mia. No matter what happens, I love you, and I'm not going anywhere. Even if you can't call me, even if you can't see me, I'm here. Always. I love you too, Mom. She left first, wiping her tears and straightening her shoulders and transforming back into the version of herself that Dominic found acceptable. Watching her walk away felt like watching her step into a cage and close the door behind her. I sat in that coffee shop for another 20 minutes, my cold tea untouched, and called Marcus. We need to prepare for worst-case scenario, I said. Pregnancy, custody battle, full legal war. I'll start pulling case law tonight, Marcus said. Charlotte, are you okay? No, but I will be. I have to be. Because now it wasn't just about saving my daughter. It was about saving my grandchild, too. The next 6 weeks were agony. Mia went dark again. No calls, no texts, no coffee meetings. I drove past her office building twice a week, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, but I never did. Rachel told me Mia had gone on medical leave due to pregnancy complications, but when I tried to call her about it, Dominic answered her phone. Charlotte. His voice was smooth, friendly, completely devoid of warmth. Mia's resting. The pregnancy has been difficult. Doctor's orders are strict bed rest and minimal stress. I'm sure you understand. I'd like to talk to her. That wouldn't be good for her stress levels right now. Her obstetrician specifically said she needs to avoid upsetting situations. I'm her mother. I'm not an upsetting situation. Actually, Charlotte, you are. Mia's been very clear that your attempts to undermine our marriage have been causing her significant anxiety. The doctor agrees that distance is best right now, for the baby's sake. Let me talk to my daughter. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Goodbye, Charlotte. He hung up. I immediately called back. Voicemail. I tried Mia's work email. Bounce back account deactivated. I tried her personal email. No response. I drove to the penthouse. The doorman, a different one, not the friendly man I'd met before, refused to let me up. I'm sorry, ma'am. Mr. Ashford has left strict instructions. No visitors for Mrs. Ashford. She's on medical rest. I'm her mother. I understand, ma'am, but my orders are clear. If I let you up, I lose my job. I stood on that sidewalk on the Upper East Side, looking up at the penthouse windows, all dark, all closed, and felt something cold and terrible settle in my chest. Dominic had cut off my access completely. Mia was in that apartment, pregnant and isolated, and there was nothing I could do about it. I went to the police precinct, filed a wellness check request. The officer behind the desk looked at me with tired sympathy. Ma'am, unless you have evidence of immediate danger, proof of violence, threats, weapons, we can't just force entry into someone's home. My daughter is being held against her will. Has she called you and said that no, but has she filed a police report, a restraining order? No, but her husband won't let me talk to her. That's not illegal, ma'am. Spouses can make decisions about visitors, especially during medical situations. He softened slightly. Look, I understand you're worried, but from a legal standpoint, there's nothing actionable here. Your daughter is an adult. She's married. Unless she reports abuse herself, our hands are tied. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip his desk over. I wanted to explain that by the time there was actionable evidence, it might be too late. But I didn't, because causing a scene would only give Dominic more ammunition. He'd paint me as unstable as a danger to Mia's pregnancy as justification for the restraining order I was sure he was already planning. So I left, drove home, and started planning. If I couldn't get to Mia in the city, I'd have to find another way. That's when I remembered the security system at the farmhouse. It tracked entries. And if Dominic was as controlling as I thought, he'd eventually take Mia there, to show his dominance, to prove he could access her one safe space, to break her spirit completely. I called the security company and asked them to add a feature real-time alerts whenever the front door was opened. They could text me immediately any time, day or night. Is there a reason for the urgency, Mrs. Hayes? The technician asked. Family safety, I said, which was true, just not in the way he probably thought. The alerts were activated within 24 hours. I also called my brother. Owen, I need you to be on standby. Keep your phone on at all times. If I call and say I need you to drop everything and come. Jesus, Charlie, what's happening? I told him everything. The pregnancy, the isolation, the bruises, the complete loss of contact. Owen's voice went cold and flat the way it used to when we were kids and someone threatened me. Tell me what you need. I need backup. If I have to go get her, I need someone who won't hesitate. Someone who won't be afraid of the Ashfords and their money and their lawyers. I'll be ready. You call, I come. No questions asked. Thank you. Charlie, don't thank me. She's family. We protect family. I spent the next 3 weeks in a state of constant vigilance. I kept my phone charged at all times. I kept a bag packed in my car clothes, toiletries, cash copies of all the legal documents Marcus had prepared. I drove up to Hudson Valley twice to make sure the farmhouse was ready, clean sheets on the beds, food in the pantry, the heat working. I was preparing for war. And then on a Monday night in late November at 1:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Security alert. Front door opened at 42 Willow Creek Lane. I was out of bed, instantly pulling on clothes, grabbing my keys. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial Owen's number. Charlie, he sounded groggy, then instantly alert. What's wrong? The farmhouse. Someone's there. I'm going now. I'm 20 minutes behind you. Wait for me. I can't. If it's her, if she's in trouble. Charlie, listen to me. If it's not her, if it's Ashford setting a trap, you need backup. 20 minutes. Please. He was right. I forced myself to think strategically instead of emotionally. Okay, 20 minutes. I'll park down the road and wait. I made the drive to Hudson Valley in record time, breaking every speed limit, my heart hammering against my ribs. The farmhouse sat dark against the November sky, but I could see a single light in the upstairs window. the master bedroom. And in the driveway, Dominic's black Range Rover. I parked half a mile down the road and waited. Every second felt like an hour. I kept checking my phone. 2:15, 2:17, 2:20. At 2:23, Owen's truck pulled up behind me. He got out carrying a large flashlight that could double as a weapon and a crowbar from his toolbox. "You think we'll need that?" I asked, staring at the crowbar. "I think we should be prepared for anything." We approached the farmhouse on foot, staying off the gravel driveway to avoid making noise. The house was eerily quiet. No sounds. No movement except that single flickering candle in the upstairs window. Why a candle? The electricity worked. I'd checked it last week. Unless someone had turned off the power. My blood ran cold. We circled to the back of the house. The kitchen door had a glass pane old-fashioned original to the house. Owen put his hand on my shoulder. "You sure about this?" "She's my daughter. I'm sure." He wrapped his jacket around his arm and punched through the glass. The sound was shockingly loud in the quiet night. He reached through, unlocked the door, and we were in. The house was freezing. The heat was off, and it was dark, completely dark, except for that candle upstairs. "Mia!" I screamed, running for the stairs. "MIA!" a muffled cry from above. "Mom!" I took the stairs 2 at a time. The master bedroom door was closed, and there on the outside of the door was a slide bolt. New, industrial. The kind you'd use to lock a shed or a storage unit. Someone had installed a lock on the outside of the bedroom door. Someone had locked my daughter inside. Owen didn't hesitate. He slammed his shoulder into the door. The wood splintered but held. He hit it again harder, a grunt of effort escaping his lips. The door flew open. Mia was huddled in the corner of the room, wrapped in a duvet, shaking violently. She was 7 months pregnant, her belly round under the blanket, and she looked like she'd lost 20 pounds everywhere else. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken and terrified. The candle had burned down to almost nothing. It must have been her only light source for hours. "Mom!" She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. She collapsed back to the floor. I ran to her, pulling her into my arms. She was ice cold, shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. "He left," she sobbed into my shoulder. 3 days ago. He locked me in here and left. No food, no water, no heat. He turned everything off. He said he wouldn't come back until I signed the papers. Papers to break the trust, to sell the house, to prove I choose him. 3 days. Owen's voice was deadly quiet behind me. He left you here pregnant for 3 days. He said he was in the guest cottage, that he was waiting for me to come to my senses, that I was being hysterical and dramatic and I needed to calm down. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. But I couldn't get out. The door was locked. The windows don't open, they're painted shut from the renovation. I tried to break one, but I was afraid of hurting the baby. I had a few bottles of water, but I ran out yesterday. The candle was almost gone. I thought I was going to die here. That the baby and I would both... "You're safe now," I said, holding her tight. "You're safe. We're leaving. Right now." Touching reunion. The voice came from the doorway. We all spun around. Dominic stood there, leaning against the broken door frame, holding a coffee cup like he was watching a mildly interesting play. He was wearing an expensive cashmere coat, looking perfectly put together like he'd just come from brunch instead of from imprisoning his pregnant wife. "You're trespassing Charlotte. Owen, is it?" He took a sip of coffee. "Breaking and entering. I'll have you both arrested." "You locked your pregnant wife in a freezing room for 3 days," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "No food, no water, no heat. That's unlawful imprisonment. That's domestic violence. That's endangerment of a child." Dominic laughed. Actually laughed. "She's my wife. She was having a hysterical episode. I did what was necessary to help her calm down. I was right here on the property the whole time. I was waiting for her to see reason." He looked at Mia with disgust. "Look at you. Pathetic. Running to mommy because you can't handle being an adult. Can't handle being a wife. Can't even sign a simple document without having a breakdown." Owen stepped forward. He didn't say a word. He just stood there 6'4" of solid muscle, holding that crowbar loosely at his side, and looked at Dominic with the calm indifference of a man who'd worked construction for 30 years and knew exactly how to handle bullies. Dominic stopped talking. His arrogance flickered and died as he registered Owen's size, the crowbar, the complete absence of fear in Owen's eyes. You can try to have us arrested, I said quietly, helping Mia to her feet. But I don't think you will, because when the police see this bolt on the door, I pointed at the lock. When they see her condition, when the hospital documents everything, you won't be pressing trespassing charges. You'll be defending yourself against criminal charges. Dominic's jaw clenched. Fine, take her. She's useless to me like this anyway. But you'll regret this, Charlotte. My family has resources you can't imagine. When this goes to court, I will destroy you. I will take everything. The house, the baby, everything. Save your threats for your lawyer, I said. You're going to need them. We got Mia down the stairs and out to Owen's truck. She could barely walk, her legs weak from 3 days of minimal movement. We wrapped her in every blanket we could find and cranked the heat to maximum. Hospital, Owen said, starting the engine. Now. No, please, I just want to go home. Mia, you need to be checked. The baby needs to be checked. And we need documentation of everything. Medical records, police report, all of it. I held her hand. I know you're scared. I know you're exhausted. But we have to do this right. She nodded weakly and closed her eyes. We drove her to Hudson Valley Medical Center. The ER doctor who examined her was a woman in her mid-40s named Elena Rodriguez. She took one look at Mia's condition and her face went hard. How long were you without food and water? She asked, starting an IV. 3 days, maybe 2.5. And you're how far along at 28 weeks? Dr. Rodriguez worked quickly, efficiently, her anger carefully controlled. You're severely dehydrated, malnourished, showing signs of acute stress. The baby's heartbeat is strong but faster than I'd like. She looked at me. Who did this? Her husband. Did he know she was pregnant? Yes. Something dangerous flashed in Dr. Rodriguez's eyes. I'm going to need to report this. We have protocols for domestic violence situations. The police will need to be called. Please, Mia whispered. Please call them. I want to press charges. I want this documented. She started crying again. I want my baby to be safe. Dr. Rodriguez squeezed her hand. You're both going to be safe, I promise. The police came. They took statements. They photographed the bruises on Mia's wrists, new ones from where Dominic had grabbed her before locking her in the room. They photographed the bolt on the bedroom door. They took Mia's testimony and mine and Owen's. They arrested Dominic that night, charged him with unlawful imprisonment, domestic violence, and endangerment of a minor. The bail was set at $500,000. He posted it within 6 hours. But that 6 hours was enough. It gave us time to file for an emergency restraining order, time to file for emergency custody, time to start the divorce proceedings. The war had officially begun. Mia stayed in the hospital for 3 days. They monitored the baby, got her rehydrated and nourished, treated her for mild hypothermia and acute stress. The baby was okay, resilient, Dr. Rodriguez said, but Mia needed complete rest. On the 3rd day, a social worker came to talk to Mia about her options, about safe houses, about resources for abuse victims, about the reality of leaving an abuser. The most dangerous time for a victim is when they leave, the social worker said gently. That's when abusers escalate, when they feel they're losing control. You need to be very, very careful. I have the farmhouse, Mia said. My mom gave it to me. He can't touch it. The social worker looked at me with something like respect. You're a smart woman. That kind of financial protection, it saves lives. We brought Mia to the farmhouse when she was discharged. Owen and I had spent those 3 days making it ready. We'd installed new locks on all the doors, industrial grade. We'd activated the full security system with cameras. We'd stocked the kitchen with healthy food. We'd made up the master bedroom with soft sheets and extra pillows to support her pregnant belly. We'd turned the house from a symbol into a sanctuary. Mia stood on the porch looking out at the November landscape, bare trees, brown grass, gray sky, and started crying. What's wrong, honey? I asked, worried. Nothing's wrong. This is the first time in months that I felt like I could breathe. She turned to me. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see. Thank you for giving me a place to be safe. I hugged her carefully, mindful of her belly. That's what mothers do, sweetheart. We protect our children. Always. But even as I held her, even as I felt relief that she was safe for now, I knew this was just the beginning. Dominic Ashford had posted bail. His lawyers were already filing counter motions. Victoria Ashford had released a statement calling Mia disturbed and me manipulative. The real battle, the legal battle, was about to begin, and I was ready for it. The first legal salvo came 48 hours after Mia's discharge from the hospital. Marcus called me at 7 in the morning. I was in the farmhouse kitchen making breakfast for Mia: scrambled eggs, whole wheat toast, fresh orange juice. The simple act of feeding my daughter felt like resistance, like every bite she took was a victory against Dominic's attempt to break her. "Charlotte, we have a problem," Marcus said without preamble. "Whitman and Associates filed an emergency motion last night. They're seeking immediate visitation rights for Dominic. Supervised, but still. They're claiming the restraining order is overly broad and denies him access to his unborn child." My hand tightened on the spatula. "He locked her in a room for 3 days. He's facing criminal charges." "I know, but they're arguing that the charges are unproven accusations and that a father has rights to involvement in his child's gestation. They've got affidavits from 2 obstetricians, his experts obviously saying that paternal stress can impact fetal development and that denying him contact is harmful to the baby." "That's insane." "That's expensive lawyers twisting science to serve their client. The hearing is Friday, 3 days from now. Can you get Mia ready to testify?" I looked through the doorway to where Mia sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. She'd barely slept since we'd brought her home. Every sound made her jump. Every car on the road made her panic that Dominic had found a way around the restraining order. "I don't know if she's ready," I said quietly. "She needs to be. Because if we don't fight this, it sets precedent. Next, they'll push for more access, more rights, and before we know it, they'll be arguing for joint custody when the baby is born." "Okay, I'll prepare her. What else do I need to know?" "They're going after the trust. Filed a separate civil suit claiming you exercised undue influence over Mia, that the trust was created to sabotage her marriage, and that it should be dissolved as part of the marital assets." Marcus's voice was grim. "They're throwing everything at us, Charlotte, trying to overwhelm us with motions and hearings and legal fees. How much is this going to cost?" "For the emergency motion and the trust defense, another $40,000 minimum. If it goes to a full trial on the trust validity ad, another $60,000. And that's just the beginning. Once the baby is born and we're dealing with custody arrangements, child support asset division, Charlotte, you're looking at $200,000 to $300,000 total, maybe more if they appeal." The number hit me like a physical blow. My retirement fund had $127,000. My savings had another $15,000. I owned my apartment in Queens outright. Maybe I could get $180,000 for it in the current market. That would give me roughly $320,000 total if I liquidated everything I owned. Enough to fight. Barely. "Do it," I said. "Whatever it takes, I'll find the money." "Charlotte, are you sure if you sell your apartment, where will you live?" "Here, in the guest cottage. This farmhouse was always meant to protect Mia. Turns out it's protecting me, too." After I hung up, I sat down at the kitchen table and did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I cried. Not quiet tears, full body-shaking sobs that I muffled with a dish towel so Mia wouldn't hear. I cried for my daughter's suffering. I cried for the grandchild who was going to be born into this mess. I cried for the life savings I was about to burn through. I cried for the exhaustion and the fear and the rage that I'd been holding inside for months. And when I was done, I washed my face, took a deep breath, and went to tell Mia about the hearing. She took it better than I expected. "I can do it," she said, her hand resting on her belly. "I need to do it. For the baby. He can't," her voice cracked. "He can't be allowed near this child unsupervised. Mom, you didn't see him those last few weeks. The things he said, the way he looked at me. Like I was an object he owned. Like the baby was just another thing to control." "Did he ever threaten the baby directly?" She hesitated. "Once, when I said I wasn't sure about quitting my job. He said, 'You'll do what's best for my child or you'll regret it.' And the way he said 'my child,' not our child, not the baby, my child, like I was just an incubator." I wrote it down in my notebook. Every detail mattered now. Every word, every threat, every moment of control. We spent the next 3 days preparing. Marcus came up to the farmhouse and conducted practice testimony sessions with Mia. He was gentle but thorough, asking her the hard questions that Dominic's lawyer would ask. "Mrs. Ashford, isn't it true that you never tried to leave before the alleged incident?" Mrs. Ashford, you're asking us to believe your husband, a respected businessman from a prominent family, locked you in a room out of cruelty rather than concern for your mental state. Mrs. Ashford, can you explain why you hid your pregnancy from your husband for several days if you weren't planning to use the child as leverage? Each question made Mia flinch, but she answered them. Honestly, directly, without the apologetic tone she used to use when Dominic questioned her. She was getting stronger, day by day, hour by hour. On Thursday night, the night before the hearing, Mia couldn't sleep. I found her at 2 a.m, sitting in the rocking chair in what would eventually be the nursery, her hands on her belly. "He's moving," she said quietly. "The baby. He's been active all night." I think so. I don't know for sure yet, but I keep thinking of him as he." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Mom, what if I lose? What if the judge says Dominic can see me, can be in the delivery room, can be there when the baby is born? Then we'll deal with it." "But Mia, listen to me. You're not the same person who walked into that penthouse 8 months ago. You're not the scared girl who let him control every aspect of your life. You're a mother now, and mothers are fierce." "I don't feel fierce. I feel terrified." "Terrified and fierce aren't opposites, sweetheart. Sometimes they're the same thing." The hearing was held in family court in White Plains. We arrived early. Marcus's strategy was to appear organized, prepared, confident. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly ill. Dominic arrived with his legal team at exactly 9:00 a.m. 3 lawyers in expensive suits carrying leather briefcases. Dominic himself looked perfect, tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, an expression of wounded concern. He'd lost weight, which made his cheekbones more prominent, more sympathetic. He looked like a man suffering, not a man who'd committed a crime. Victoria Ashford swept in behind him, dripping in pearls and righteous indignation. She saw me, and her lip curled in disgust. The judge was a woman in her late 50s named Patricia Monroe. She had steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, and the kind of face that suggested she'd heard every lie, every manipulation, every sob story in the book, and was unimpressed by all of them. "This is a hearing on Mr. Ashford's emergency motion for visitation access," Judge Monroe said, looking over her reading glasses at both legal teams. "I've reviewed the filings. I've reviewed the police reports and medical records. Let's keep this focused and factual. Mr. Whitman, you may begin." Dominic's lead attorney, Richard Whitman, stood. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the smooth confidence of a man who'd won hundreds of cases. "Your Honor, my client is a devoted husband who has been unfairly cut off from his wife and unborn child based on unsubstantiated allegations made during what was clearly a psychiatric episode. Mrs. Ashford has a documented history of emotional instability." "Objection," Marcus said, standing. "There is no documented history. Mr. Whitman is testifying instead of presenting evidence." Sustained. Mr. Whitman, stick to facts supported by evidence. Whitman didn't miss a beat. "Your Honor, Mrs. Ashford voluntarily went to a remote property, a property given to her by her mother, as what we believe was part of a long-term plan to destabilize the marriage. While there, she refused to communicate with her husband for several days, causing him significant distress. When he went to check on her welfare, she made wild accusations that he had imprisoned her." "The door had a bolt on the outside," Marcus interjected. "A bolt Mr. Ashford installed. The police documented it. The medical records show Mrs. Ashford was dehydrated and malnourished. These aren't wild accusations. They're facts." "The bolt was for safety," Whitman said smoothly. "The property is old and disrepair. Mr. Ashford was concerned his wife might wander in her confused state and hurt herself or the baby. He made temporary modifications to ensure her safety while he sought medical help." It was a good lie. Plausible. The kind of thing that might make sense if you didn't know the full context. Judge Monroe looked at Marcus. "Do you have evidence to counter this narrative?" "We have Mrs. Ashford's testimony, Your Honor, and we'd like to call her to the stand." Mia stood carefully, her hand on her belly. She'd dressed simply in navy maternity dress, flat shoes, minimal makeup. She looked young and vulnerable and honest. Marcus walked her through the timeline methodically. The wedding gift, the gradual isolation, the controlling behavior, the bruises, the pregnancy announcement and Dominic's demands, the final confrontation at the farmhouse. "Mrs. Ashford, in your own words, what happened at the farmhouse?" Marcus asked. Mia took a deep breath. "He took me there against my will. said we needed to get away from my mother's influence. When we arrived, he demanded I sign papers to break the trust on the property. When I refused, he locked me in the bedroom from the outside. He turned off the heat and the electricity. He took my phone. He left me there with 2 bottles of water and no food. He said he wouldn't let me out until I signed. How long were you there? 3 days, almost 72 hours. Did you try to escape? The windows were painted shut from renovations. I tried to break one, but I was afraid of cutting myself and hurting the baby. The door was locked from the outside. There was no way out. Were you afraid for your life? Mia's voice broke. Yes, I thought I was going to die there, that my baby and I would both die and no one would find us in time. Whitman's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Ashford, you claim to have been imprisoned, yet you didn't call 911 when you had phone access earlier that week. Why not? He monitored my phone. If I'd called the police, he would have known immediately. But you called your mother for coffee. If you could do that, why not call for help? I was scared of what he'd do. He'd threatened to take the baby if I ever tried to leave. Threaten? Do you have recordings of these threats? Text messages, emails. No, he was too smart for that. So we're supposed to believe these threats existed based solely on your word. Yes, Mia's voice strengthened. Because they happened. Just because he didn't leave evidence doesn't mean it didn't happen. Mrs. Ashford, is it possible that you've exaggerated or misremembered events due to pregnancy hormones or stress? No, I remember every word, every moment, every time he made me feel small and worthless and trapped. Your Honor, Whitman said, turning to the judge, my client is being denied access to his child based on the uncorroborated claims of a woman who, by her own admission, has no evidence to support her allegations. Meanwhile, she's living in a house specifically designed by her mother to facilitate this separation. The trust itself proves premeditation. Mrs. Hayes created an escape route for her daughter before the marriage even began. Judge Monroe looked at me. Mrs. Hayes, I'd like to hear from you. Why did you create this trust? I stood. Your Honor, I'm a paralegal. I've worked in family law for 15 years. I've seen what happens when women have nowhere to go. When they're trapped because leaving means homelessness or poverty. I created that trust to make sure my daughter always had choices. Not to destroy her marriage, to protect her if her marriage became dangerous. And you believed it would become dangerous. I hoped I was wrong. But yes, I saw warning signs. The way Mr. Ashford looked at my daughter. The way he spoke to her. The public humiliation at the wedding. I've seen enough controlling men to recognize the pattern. Some might call that interference in your daughter's marriage. Some might call it a mother's instinct. Your Honor, if I hadn't created that trust, my daughter would have had nowhere to go when she finally escaped. She would have been completely dependent on Mr. Ashford financially. The trust isn't evidence of malice, it's evidence of foresight. Judge Monroe sat back, her expression unreadable. I'm going to take a 30-minute recess to review the evidence and testimony. Those 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Mia sat beside me, trembling. Owen had come for moral support and sat on her other side, a solid, silent presence. Marcus reviewed his notes, his face tense. Dominic and his legal team looked confident. Dominic even smiled slightly, like he was certain of victory. When Judge Monroe returned, her face was grave. I've reviewed everything carefully, she said. The medical records are compelling. Mrs. Ashford was severely dehydrated and malnourished when admitted to the hospital. The police documented a bolt installed on the outside of a bedroom door, a modification that serves no legitimate safety purpose. The photographs of bruising are consistent with grip marks from forcible restraint. Dominic's smile faded. Mr. Ashford, your story about making temporary safety modifications doesn't hold water. A bolt on the outside of a door is a prison, not a safety measure. And your claim that you were seeking medical help is undermined by the fact that you didn't call for medical assistance during the 72 hours Mrs. Ashford was locked in that room. Judge Monroe looked directly at Dominic, and her expression was ice. I find Mrs. Ashford's testimony credible. I find the evidence supports her version of events. And I find that you pose a potential danger to both Mrs. Ashford and the unborn child. Your Honor, Whitman started to object. Judge Monroe held up a hand. I'm not finished. Mr. Ashford, your motion for visitation is denied. The restraining order will remain in place. You are to have no contact with Mrs. Ashford, no phone calls, no emails, no third-party messages. When the child is born, we will revisit custody arrangements, But until then, you are to stay at least 500 feet away from Mrs. Ashford and any property she occupies." The gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the courtroom. Mia collapsed against me, sobbing with relief. Owen's hand gripped my shoulder so hard it hurt. Marcus allowed himself a small, tight smile. Across the aisle, Dominic's face had gone purple with rage. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. Whitman was already gathering his papers, no doubt planning the appeal. But for this moment, we had won. As we left the courtroom, Victoria intercepted us in the hallway. "This isn't over," she hissed. "My son will not be denied his child. We will appeal. We will fight this all the way to the state Supreme Court if necessary. And Charlotte, when this is done, when we've proven your daughter is an unfit mother, we will take everything. The child, the house, your precious trust, everything." "Mrs. Ashford," Marcus said calmly, "if you continue to harass my clients, I'll file for a restraining order against you as well. I suggest you speak to your lawyers before making any more threats." Victoria swept away her designer heels, clicking on the marble floor. In the parking lot, Mia finally broke down completely. The adrenaline that had kept her upright during testimony drained away, and she sat in Owen's truck, shaking and crying. "It's okay," I said, holding her. "You did it. You were so brave." "She's right, though," Mia sobbed. "They're going to keep fighting. They have unlimited money. What if they eventually win? What if they take my baby? They won't, because we're going to fight them every single step of the way. And Mia, we have something they don't. What the truth, and a judge who sees through their lies." But even as I said it, I knew the battle was far from over. We'd won one skirmish. The war was just beginning. Over the next 6 weeks, Dominic's legal team filed motion after motion. They challenged the restraining order. They demanded psychiatric evaluations for Mia. They subpoenaed records from her doctor, her employer, her bank accounts. They were looking for anything, any weakness, any inconsistency, any leverage. And it was bankrupting me. By December, I'd spent $87,000 in legal fees. I sold my apartment in Queens, got $165,000 for it after commissions and closing costs. I moved permanently into the guest cottage at the farmhouse. It was small, just a bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette, but it was enough. Mia felt guilty about the money. "Mom, you can't do this. You can't give up everything." "I'm not giving up everything. I'm investing it in what matters most. You and the baby." I was sorting through boxes of my possessions, deciding what to keep, what to store, what to donate. 15 years of my life in Queens reduced to what would fit in a cottage bedroom. Besides, I like it here. The air is cleaner, the view is better, and I get to spend every day with you. "But your retirement." "Mia, listen to me. I can work until I'm 70 if I have to. I can rebuild savings, but I can't rebuild you if Dominic destroys you. I can't get back the time with my grandchild if Dominic takes custody. Money is replaceable. You're not." She hugged me, her pregnant belly pressing between us. "I'll pay you back. Someday. You'll pay it forward. When your child is grown, if they ever need protecting, you'll do whatever it takes. That's how this works." In early December, we had another breakthrough. Marcus's investigator found 3 of Dominic's ex-girlfriends, and one of them, Sarah Mitchell, was willing to break her NDA. Victoria paid me $200,000 to go away and never speak about what Dominic did, Sarah said via Zoom, her face pale but determined. "But I can't stay silent anymore. Not when there's a baby involved." Sarah's story was chillingly similar to Mia's. The love bombing at the start, the gradual control, the isolation from friends and family, the monitoring of her phone and email, the physical intimidation, grabbing her arms, backing her into corners, never quite hitting her, but always making her afraid he might. "And the locked doors," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "He had this thing about locked doors. Said his father used to lock him in his room when he was bad, and he'd learned it was an effective way to help people. Think clearly. He locked me in his apartment once for an entire weekend. Said I was being irrational and needed time to calm down." "Did you report it?" Marcus asked. "I tried, but the Ashfords, they have connections everywhere. The police treated it like a domestic dispute. Victoria showed up with a lawyer and a check. She said if I filed charges, they'd destroy my career. I was a junior associate at a law firm owned by one of Victoria's friends. I believed her." "Are you willing to testify to this in court?" Sarah hesitated. "If I do, I'll be violating the NDA. Victoria can sue me for the $200,000 or plus penalties." Let her try, Marcus said. You were coerced into signing that NDA. A good lawyer and I know several can argue it was signed under duress and have it thrown out. Besides, the truth is an absolute defense. Everything you're telling us is true, isn't it? Every word. We now had a pattern. Dominic Ashford wasn't having a difficult marriage with Mia. He was a serial abuser who'd done this before and would do it again. The Ashford family had a pattern of covering up his behavior, paying off victims, silencing anyone who threatened their reputation. But there was a problem. Sarah's testimony would be powerful in a criminal trial. But Dominic's criminal trial for unlawful imprisonment wasn't scheduled until March, 3 months away, and the baby was due in 6 weeks. We needed to use Sarah's testimony in the custody proceedings, which meant we needed to depose Victoria Ashford. She'll never agree to a deposition, I said to Marcus. She'll fight it. She doesn't have a choice. We've filed for it. Her lawyers will try to delay, but Judge Monroe already ruled that Victoria's involvement in covering up Dominic's previous behavior is relevant to determining his fitness as a parent. Victoria will sit for that deposition or she'll be held in contempt. The deposition was scheduled for December 28th. Victoria arrived in full battle armor, a Chanel suit, enough diamonds to fund a small country's economy, and an expression of pure contempt. Her lawyer, a man named Harrison Ford, no relation to the actor, unfortunately tried to limit the scope of questioning. Marcus bulldozed through every objection. Mrs. Ashford, were you aware that your son had locked previous girlfriends in rooms against their will? I was aware he'd had some difficult relationships. Young women today are often emotionally unstable. They misinterpret normal boundaries as control. Is paying someone $200,000 to sign an NDA a normal boundary? It was a settlement to avoid false accusations. Did you believe the accusations were false? Pause. My son assured me they were exaggerated. That's not what I asked. Did you believe they were false? Longer pause. I believed my son deserved the benefit of the doubt. Even after 3 separate women made similar allegations. Those women were gold diggers. They saw an opportunity to extort money from my family. All 3 of them. What a remarkable coincidence. Marcus's voice was dry. Mrs. Ashford, let's discuss the wedding gift, the maid's uniform you gave to Mia. What was the purpose of that gift? It was a joke, a tradition in our family, a light-hearted way to teach humility. Humility, by giving a young woman cleaning supplies at her wedding in front of 300 guests. She came from very humble circumstances. I thought she should understand that marriage requires service. Service, like a servant, like a maid. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. Like a wife. A wife serves her husband. That's traditional marriage. And is it traditional marriage to lock your wife in a room without food or water? That never happened. My son was trying to help Mia through a mental health crisis. A crisis that required removing her access to food, water, heat, and communication. He was preventing her from hurting herself or the baby. By locking her in a freezing room for 3 days, Victoria's face was red now. She was hysterical. She needed to calm down. Dominic was managing the situation the best way he knew how. The way his father taught him, by using locked doors as punishment. Objection, Harrison said. Speculation. Withdrawn. Mrs. Ashford, do you believe your son did anything wrong in his treatment of Mia? Victoria looked directly at the camera recording the deposition. I believe my son is a devoted husband who has been victimized by a manipulative woman and her scheming mother. Charlotte Hayes gave Mia that house specifically to create an escape route. She poisoned the marriage from day one. She planned this whole scenario to trap my son and extort money from our family. Marcus let the statement hang in the air for a moment. Then he said quietly, So to be clear, you believe a mother giving her daughter a house a gift made months before any alleged abuse is manipulation, but a husband locking his pregnant wife in a freezing room is management. My son was protecting his child by nearly killing the mother. She was never in real danger. He was monitoring her. From the guest cottage while she had no food or water. Victoria stood up abruptly. I don't have to sit here and listen to these accusations. Harrison, we're done. Sit down, Mrs. Ashford, Marcus said sharply. This deposition isn't finished. If you leave now, I'll have a court order compelling your return within 24 hours. And trust me, the judge won't be happy about your cooperation. Victoria sat back down, vibrating with rage. The deposition continued for another 2 hours. By the end, Marcus had established several critical facts Victoria knew about Dominic's pattern of controlling behavior. She had actively covered it up. She had paid off at least 3 previous victims. And she genuinely believed that a wife's role was to serve and obey her husband without question. When we left the law office that evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, Hope. "That was brutal," I said to Marcus as we walked to our cars. "That was necessary. When this goes to trial, and it will go to trial, we need the judge to understand that Dominic's behavior wasn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern enabled by his mother's twisted values. And Charlotte, I think we're going to win." "What makes you so sure?" "Because Judge Monroe is smart enough to see through their lies, and because you gave Mia the one thing that makes all the difference in cases like this." "What's that?" "Options. Most abuse victims stay because they have nowhere to go. No money, no home, no support system. Mia has all 3. She can fight because she's not fighting from a position of desperation. She's fighting from a position of strength. The house, Marcus agreed. "You gave her a fortress. Now we just need to defend it." 2 weeks later, on January 11th, Mia went into labor. It was a Tuesday, 3 a.m. I woke to her knocking on my cottage door, her face pale, her hand on her belly. "Mom, it's time." I drove her to Hudson Valley Medical Center, the same hospital where she'd been treated after Dominic imprisoned her. Dr. Rodriguez was the attending obstetrician. She took one look at Mia and smiled. "Let's bring this baby into the world," she said. The labor was long 14 hours. Mia was exhausted, scared, in pain. But she was also fierce. Every contraction, every push, every moment was an act of defiance against Dominic and everything he'd tried to do to her. "You're doing so well," I said, holding her hand. "So strong." "I want him to have your husband's name," Mia gasped between contractions. "Noah, after Dad. Noah Hayes." "Sweetheart, are you sure? Don't you want—" "He's not an Ashford. He'll never be an Ashford. He's a Hayes. He's ours." At 7:23 p.m., Noah Hayes was born. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Red hair like Mia's. Lungs that could wake the dead. Perfect. Dr. Rodriguez placed him on Mia's chest, and my daughter looked down at her son with an expression of pure, fierce love. "Hi, baby," she whispered. "I'm your mama, and I promise you no one will ever hurt you. No one will ever make you feel small or scared or worthless. You're safe. You're loved. You're free." I took pictures with my phone, crying the whole time. Owen arrived an hour later with flowers and balloons and tears in his eyes. Marcus sent a message. "Congratulations. I've already filed papers establishing Mia as primary custodial parent. We're ahead of this." But there was one other message, one that made my blood run cold. From an unknown number, "I have a son. You can't keep me from my son. I'll see you in court." Dominic knew. Of course he knew. Hospital births are public record. His lawyers probably had alerts set up. The war wasn't over. It was just entering a new phase. But as I looked at Mia holding Noah, as I watched my daughter transform into a mother, as I saw the strength and love radiating from her, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: we would win. Because Dominic Ashford had money and lawyers and family connections. But we had something more powerful. We had a reason to fight.